All right, here's our last video for the week. So remember, for these comparative chapters that wrap up a unit are never going to have vocabulary. So we're just going to go quickly over to going into this. Post-classical networks were similar in where they came from, why they existed, and what they did. In terms of origins, the thing to keep in mind is that trade is intrinsically linked to expansion. It drives expansion and enables it because states exploit trade to their own advantage. They tax it. They acquire resources that way. They might even sponsor state-based trade to acquire resources as well, and that makes states stronger. Something that seems like an eventuality of the human story is the centralization of the eventual, ultimate centralization of government or the authority of government over the lives of individuals. But that doesn't have to be the case at all. But the theme of AP World History is definitely that states progressively centralize more and more and control the lives of the people within them more and more throughout its history. So this trade falls into that narrative quite nicely because states become wealthier and they use that wealth to leverage more control over the people that govern within the state. And states also stabilize as a consequence of trade. They have the resources to fight external and internal threats, and that stability enables trade to expand as well. Economics is what drives trade, and that there's a concept of supply and demand. You have a lot of things, which means they're not that valuable to you, but the scarcity of that thing in another place drives you to go to that place because you can get more value from the thing that you exchange. So that is what that concept drives trade, and you'll see that when we do the simulation over the next 2 weeks. But because people are the vehicles of exchange, people bring themselves with exchange, and therefore they bring their ideas and beliefs with them, and then those beliefs influence how other people see the world. It's the macrocosm of how you live your life, right? When you meet new people, they share their ideas with you, and those ideas might change and shape how you see the world as well. That happened almost ad infinitum in the Silk Road, Indian Ocean, and Trans-Saharan trade routes. That everyone was doing that because it was to their own individual benefit. Cities developed as a consequence of these trade routes as well, because the consolidation of goods meant trade became more productive, right? If you knew where to go and everyone knew where to go, you would get what you wanted in that place. You wouldn't have to travel to get silk in one city and then go to get your honey in another. If the honey and silk traders all traveled and consolidated their stuff in one area, and those silk and honey traders also want things as well that they will exchange their silk and honey for. States become stronger. We just talked about that. And then states are compelled to use that centralizing authority to standardize currency, which is something that, of course, is happening before the post-classical era, but is happening to a greater degree during this period because trade expands so much and becomes so much more important. For this next page, it just became kind of impossible to not just look at AMSCO because there was so many things to talk about. So we're just going to quickly jump over here. Do you move over there? I would just say read page 130. There's no other way to go around it. It just has everything you want to see. And finally, we're going to talk about the social implications. So we would characterize, actually, most human history from the post-classical to now are characterized as economic growth. And again, that seems like an eventuality, but also, that's not a given, right? Like, we could have a 250-year period where the economy of the world actually contracts, right? That's characterized by the scarcity of resources. Not saying that this is anywhere in the immediate future, but if in a society that is dependent upon fossil fuels and the absence of an alternative hasn't developed in time, without fossil fuels, our economy could not grow and sustain itself. And so that reality could lead to economic contraction. But in general, from 1200 to now, economy has in general only grown in scale and complexity. Okay? So as these economies grow, the need for people to make stuff grows as well. And the way that labor is characterized by people also expands, right? So you have free labor and coerced labor, and both those systems grow depending on what's necessary. You have artisanal labor of people making refined goods and craft workers who are completing, these are tradesmen and things like that. The state also uses its centralizing authority to conduct large labor projects like monumental art and architecture. Socially, there's a general timbre of patriarchy where men are generally influential, even in societies that track lineage matrilineally. There's typically a man like a chief who's in charge, but that's not like there are some, of course, deviations from that. What is really important is that with the predominance of the masculine in the post-classical world, women are met with restrictions of varying degrees and means, right? We have foot binding in China, where we also have prohibitions of head coverings and covering the body for women in Dar al-Islam. That also when those cultural norms travel to Southeast Asia, those norms are quite different and understood quite differently. And even today, you can see that in how the hijab is expressed or the head covering is expressed in the Arab world, as well as in Indonesia, which is the most populous Muslim worship nation in the world. But in general, the kind of theme to understand is that women are typically, especially in upper social classes, restricted to the private sphere. Women are kept within the home and, in a way, protected or sheltered or restricted from entering the outside world. The vocabulary used by patriarchy would be that they are protected, but also in that protection, they are limited in their opportunity and potential. Another thing that happens through the social implications that the world changes through these trade routes. The diseases spread, ideas spread, people spread by the diasporic communities, and goods spread. So that's the gist of comparing these units together. We are done with our first period of 1200 to 1450. I hope you guys have found these videos really helpful. And all I'm thinking right now is that I have so many more videos to do this school year. But good luck on your first test. You guys are, from what I understand from what Mr. Rappaport and Mr. Jones have said, you guys are doing great. You're right on track to be successful in this class, and keep up the good work. All right. So you'll see me on YouTube or in my classroom in the near future. Bye, guys.